Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to Engineering Adda. So today I will be discussing about the Spring validation and some topics of the exception handling, how we can use this. So let's get started. So I will create a Spring project, okay, and there I will create some APIs of get and post, and then I will show you how you can validate each of the beans into the Spring Boot, and how, if some exception is occurring, how you can handle those things. So let's get started. I will go to the IntelliJ. I'm using the IntelliJ as a IDE and I'm using the MySQL as a database. So let me go there and let me go here and let me create a project first. So let's say it is Spring validation and exception handling. Okay, let me go next. I'm using some starter dependency, let's say Lombok, Spring Web. Why you are using Lombok, you can go and watch my YouTube video. I already have one video for the Lombok. I explained why we are using it. And let me go for the MySQL driver and let me use the JPA as well. So this all for starter dependency I will be using in this project. Let me create this project and let it configure. Let me open in the new tab. And till then I will just explain you about the database that I'm going to use. So let me go to the MySQL. So MySQL Workbench I have installed in my machine. I'm using this as a database. So here I will be creating one database which will be connecting to the MySQL application that I have developed now. And then whatever work we will do there into the application, if let's say if we have to create some table, then that table be created into the on the particular database that I'm going to create now. So let me come here and let me create a database called Spring validation, something like that. Spring validation, and let me apply this. Apply. So and finish. So you can see, go to the last. You can see this database is created. Nothing is there into the table. So because we have not created anything, so let me copy this and later on we can use this database that I have created now into the project. So let me go to the IntelliJ and let's see if it is configured properly or not. So let me go and open the source main. Okay, it is configured. Let me minimize this one first and then. So we are done with the creation of the project. Now let me create some packages and let me create the APIs first and then I will show you the scenario where we can, how we can use the Spring validation and how we can use the exception handling there. So I just forget about one starter dependency that I need to use. That was Spring validation. Okay, so validation starter dependency I need to use. So let me go to the browser. Let me open the Spring Starter application. From here also you can generate your application if you are not using the IntelliJ Premium version. So you can come to this site Spring Starter and from there you can whatever de dependency you need and all the configuration you need to do here and then you can generate the zip file and you can extract out that zip file and then you can import it into the ID that you are going to use. So for the dependency, let me go here, add dependency, and let me type the validation. So this dependency we need to use. Let me go to the explore, and from there I can copy the. Okay, before going there, let me change it to the Maven one, and then sorry. So here it is Gradle. Let me change it to the Maven, and let me add that dependency now and validation explore. Okay, go down. You can see this is the dependency. Let me copy this and come to our project and here you can simply use this and just refresh this Maven. So it will download this starter dependency and then we can use it in our project. So let me create the application now. So let me create some packages. Let's say it is entity and some other packages, repo, service controller, something like that. Service, repo, controller. Okay, let me create this new package controller and yeah, later on we can use other packages that we'll need later on. Okay, we'll need this DTO also. So let me create this DTO package. So in the DTO class only, I will be doing the validations, not into the entity class. So that is why I created this DTO package. Okay, let me come to the entity. Let me create the user entity. So user and let me add it. So we are using Lombok. So directly I will be using the Lombok provided annotations for all argument, no argument, and data. And this class is entity class. So let me do it like entity. And there is a let me create the table with the name user. So let me use this table annotation also. Let's say name is equal to user table, something like that. Okay, now let's create some instance variables. So let's say private int id or let's say private integer id, something like that. Integer id, private string name. Okay, private string address. Okay, private string email, private string age, sorry, private int age. Okay, and let's say private double salary. So this fields we have used here as an instance variable. ID should be auto generated and it should be the ID for this entity. So let me use the annotation ID and then generated value should be identity. So it should be unique. So that is why we are using it. Okay, so we are done with the development of the entity class. Now come to the DTO. Let me create a user request and let me use this data all argument and no argument. Okay, now coming to the DTO, we'll need this all other fields uh, uh, and not ID. We are not going to use ID because we are generating the ID from automatically we are generating that ID. So here we are using this all things and now coming to coming to the repository, let me create the user repository here. So let's say it's user repo. Okay, let me extend it to the JPA repository and then okay, let me remove this. It's a JPA repository and we need to pass these two argument. One is the entity class and another is the ID type. So what is the what is the type of the ID? So it is of integer type. So that one thing, it should be interface. Okay, now coming to the service class, let me create the class user service and let me edit. Let me annotate this with @service annotation. Now coming here, I'm going to use the JPA provided method. So for that only I'm just auto wiring the instance of the user repository. From there we'll call the JPA provided method. So let's say user repo, and let me define the modifier here. So now let me create the method to insert the user record into the database and to find out the user from the database. So create and read operation I'm going to do in this project. So let me create those methods. So let's say it is user type and get user by ID, something like that. And let me define the modifier. Let me import this user class here. Okay, and with the help of this user repository methods, I'm going to call the find by ID, and I will pass the ID here. Let's say ID. And in this method argument also I need to pass the ID. So based upon this ID, it will find out the user uh, from the table, and then it will return it here. Okay, now coming to the another method, let me create get all users from DB, something like that. And we need not to provide anything here into the argument. And it is a return, its return type is the list of users. So let me do that. Java util, and here we need to find all. So there is a method in the JPA, so it is find all, and we are using that. So we are done with this. Now coming to the insert, I'm going to use create one method uh, which is inserting the data into the database. So insert user, and here we'll pass the user reference as our argument, and there is a method in the JPA which is save, and we'll pass the reference here. So we are done with this development. Now coming to the controller, let me create a user controller class, user controller, and let me annotate it with the REST controller annotation, and then we'll call the let me do this request mapping. We'll map some APIs here. So and with the help of user service instance, I'm going to call the method that we have created now. So let me auto-wire the user service here. So private user service, okay, and let me create the get mapping and the post mapping. So let's say it is find all. We are finding all the users from the database, and let's say the method is public list of users and find all users from DB, something like that. And what we are going to do with the help of the user service, I'm directly calling the user service method that I have created, get all from the user DB, get all users from the DB, and we are returning this thing here. So let me return this. Let me import the user and the list also, I think. Yeah. So we are good now. Coming to the next API, it is also the get API, and here we are passing some mapping as a user, and ID we are also passing as a URL. So for that I am using the path variable and ID, and let me change this name, find user by ID. Okay, and this return type should be of user. So we are good now. Let me change the method, find user by ID, something like that was there, get user by ID. Okay, let me pass the ID here. So it will return the user from database. Now coming to the next method, which was an insert method. So let me do, for insertion we are using the post mapping, and here I'm just simply passing insert. Okay, and let me change the name of the method, which is insert user, something like that. Insert user. Okay, and here we need to pass the user reference. So for that I'm going to use the annotation request body. So with the help of that, we'll send the JSON and it will convert into the Java object, and then it will insert into the database. So let me provide the user reference here, and let me call the insert method from the service, and let me provide this here. So we are done with the development of the APIs. Now try to let me do some configuration for the database connectivity. So come to the application properties. I already have this configuration handy. So to save your time, I'm directly going to copy paste this, and then you can take a look here, or I will provide the GitHub repository for this project into the description. So from there you can find this. So here what all things are there, I will just explain you one by one. So this is the driver name of the database that we are using, which is a MySQL, and this is the URL, and this is username and password. So in the URL, my MySQL is up on 3306 locally. So, and this is the database that I'm going to use. So let me change the database name, because I've created this Spring validation as a database. So let me change that there. Come to the IntelliJ, and let me paste it here. This is username and password, and these two we are using to show the SQL query that is running behind when we are hitting the APIs, or whenever we are doing something. So what SQL query is fired, it will show into the log file. So for that, this is, you can remove all this, and this is for the port number on which like the application is running defaultly on the port number 8080, but we are changing this port number to 9190. Okay, so this is about the configuration. Let me run this application, and then I will show you what all things are happening, and I will hit all the APIs to see how it is working. So, and then I will explain you about the validation part and the exception handling part. So you can see here into the log files, you can see that one create table query is fired. Okay. So some table is created into the database automatically. So come here to the table, and just let me refresh this first. So earlier it was not there, so you can see user table is there. Now come here to the SQL query, and let me do this user table, and then let me fire this query. So you can see the empty user table is created. Now I will insert some of the record, and then I will show you uh, how the post and the get mapping is working. So yeah, you can see this table is created which is empty. Now come to the Postman. I'm using Postman to hit these APIs and to insert the record into the database. So let me go to the IntelliJ project, and then let me go to the user first. So what all fields are there? It is name, address, email, age, and salary. So let me go there to the Postman. Name, address, salary is there, and age is there. And let me add the email. So email, and then let me provide something like @gmail.com, and then let me put the comma here. So application is up on 9190 API, and then what is the mapping that we did? Come to the controller, you can see from there. So to insert something, it is insert, and here the mapping for the whole class is API. So let me go there, go to the Postman. So let me change this to the insert. Okay, and let me change this method type to the post. Now we are done with this. ID is auto generated, so that is why I'm not passing it here. Let me hit this. So you can see the first record is inserted. Come to the database and run this query. So you can see one record is there. Similarly, I can insert couple of records. But what I want to say is here you can see I'm just passing a wrong email ID, but it is picking up that email ID correctly and it is inserting that to the database. Let's say if I pass here something like null, okay. So ideally it should not insert these values to the database, but it is doing that. So there the role of validation is coming to the picture. So we need to validate each of the fields, each of the beans into the database. So that is why this video is about. Okay. So let me try hitting this and then I will show you this will also be inserted. So go to the database, run this query. You can see if I am sending something null, it is inserted. So now come to the IntelliJ. I will do some validations and then I will show you how you can use it. So I have created this user request. Okay. So here I will do some validations. Okay. So let me put this thing to the at the rate not null. So you can see this is coming from Jakarta validation constant. So you should be using this. Here you can pass some message like you can pass the message like username should not be null. Username should not be null. Something like that. Similarly, for the address also you can use the same annotation. Okay, so for email I have they have one annotation called email. So let me pass. If we are not providing the correct email ID, this message should appear there. So let me send the message as this is not a correct mail. Correct mail ID. Okay, let me come to the age. Let me define the age to minimum to maximum, something like that. So let me say at the rate mean. So let's say the mean is 23 and max age is 60. So between this, the age should be there. And let's say, yeah, let me send the value here. Some, let me send the message here. So let's say if age is less than 23, then this message should appear. Age is less than 23. Okay. And if it is more than 23, more than 60, then this message should appear. Age is more than 60. Okay, now coming to the salary, let me do not blank, something like that, or not empty. Yeah. So we are done with the validation part. Now coming to the, so we are nowhere we are using the user request now. We were directly using the user thing and user entity, and then we are hitting the API. Now I will be doing something like I will be converting the user to the user request and then back. First, I will convert this user to the user request and then do some validation. And after that, when we are done with the validation, I will convert that entity to the user. And then we'll do the operation like with the help of the user we'll do the database operation, but for validation purpose I am just converting the user to the user request. So let me do all those things. So come to the user service. So here when I'm going to insert this record, so first here I will pass the user request. Okay, so let's say it's user request, and let me say it's okay, user request. So let me create a user entity here. So let's say it's a user is equal to new user, and then user dot set name. I'm getting the name from the user request dot get name. Or yeah, we can do this way, or there is another way also we can do these things. So let me go to the user, and here you can see all argument constructor. There I can use the static name as let's say build, and then we can directly use this to build this constructor. So it is static name is build, something like that. Similarly, I need to do for the request user also. So now come here to the user service, and let me do. So let me minimize this user, and then directly we can call this user dot build, and then here we can pass each of the argument from the user request. So let's say it's a get name first, and then user request dot get what all the things are there. Let me see first, and then I will name, address, email, age, and salary. So come to the service. Name is done. User request email, name, address. Sorry, user request dot not this way. We need to pass the reference here. Address, similarly email, age, and salary. So come here, and where is the age? User request, user request, user request. So let me do that thing. Uh, user dot get age, and then user request dot get salary. So these two are there. Here with the in the place of ID I provided 0. You can provide this, and then what I'm doing, I'm simply returning the user now. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are just whatever the request coming from the API, it is coming in the form of user request. We are validating it and then changing it to the user, and then we are inserting it into the database. Okay, so let me call the save here. So save with the help of the user repo. I'm going to call the save method here, and then insert the user, and then simply return that one. So here I'm just going to return, and let me remove this line. It is giving error by because here we have provided the user. So let me do it like a user request, and then we are good. User request, and here it should be okay. Let me user request. So we are from the postman we will be sending the user request, okay, and then it will go to the service, and there it will like then it will pick up from the validation, and it will validate, and then it will convert this to the database to the user, and then we'll save that to the database. So we are done with this. Coming to the, let me see if we are doing anything wrong or not. So user service is good, user is good, user request is good, controller is good. Now come here, okay. So let me go to the controller first. So here how it will pick up that this should be validated. So there is a string annotation called valid. So that we need to provide here, so that we can validate this user request that is coming from the postman. So now let me send this and then I will show you how what we are getting now. So you can see that name is null and the email is also not valid. Rest everything is valid. Let me send this. So you can see this is inserted, right? Okay, I have not started the application again. So let me do it and then. So we might be having three record into the database. Let me go to the database and run this and show you. Yeah. So enable this. Now it is up on the port 9190. Go to the postman and hit the API from there. So you can say it is giving some internal server error. Okay. But what we are getting is here you can see some validation. We are getting this unexpected type exception. No validator could be found for constraint validation and all. So this is like if we are not providing the valid inputs for the arguments, we are getting the exception. Earlier it was inserting into the database, right? So now we are good with our development. Now let me configure everything and let me show these things to the client that like let me show this configuration that we did here. Let me like if the username is empty, then the client should be able to see that username should not be null. Okay, if the message is null, then client should be able to see that all these messages the client should able to see if something is not done properly. Okay, so if some validation is failing, then client should able to see these messages. So how we can do that? So for that, we need to create a exception handling mechanism. Okay, so let me go there and let me create it. So let me first of all, yeah, let me create a package called advice and then there how we are handling the exception globally. If you don't know how you can handle the global exception, then you can go and watch my video which is on the global exception handling in Spring Boot, and from there you can get how we can handle the exception globally. So let me create this package called advice, and here let me create a class called exception handler application, something like that, handler app. Okay, and because this is handling the exception of the REST APIs, so it should be annotated with the annotation called REST controller advice, and here we need to provide some methods. Okay, so whenever this let me see exact what type of error we are getting. So let me go there. So whatever error we are getting, whatever this exception we are getting, we need to map this in this class so that next time when it is coming, we can handle it and then we can show our messages that is there into the validation class. So let me do that. I went through this exception that I got. It is like no validator could be found for constant validation not blank. Like for the double, I think this not blank should not be there. So that is why we are getting this, because if we are not able to insert something into the database based upon the validation, proper validation, then some other exception we should be getting, not this one. So let me change this and then I will see how it is working. So let's say for this not empty, something like that, and then let me rerun this. So for the salary, we are getting this validation error. I think properly I have not validated it, so that is why. Okay, let it be up. Okay, it is up on 9190. Let me go to the postman and then let me hit this. Okay, internal server error, come here to the IntelliJ, and again for double, not empty is not there. Let me remove this and let me put it like this only, and then we'll try. I'm not validating the salary here. Okay, so let me do it. Okay, let me go to the postman. Let me hit this. So you can say bad request is there. Okay, so this is what we will be getting. Come here, and the exception that we are getting is method argument not valid exception. That means the validation is failed for some of the fields. Okay, but we are not getting the message, right? So you can come here, and we have to map this method. We have to map this exception into our exception handler class. So for that, let me create one method called public exception handler, something like that. Let me say handle exception, and let me create this. This method should be annotated uh, with annotation called at the rate exception handler. Okay, and here what we need to do, we need to pass the exception that we got. So let me pass it here, and let me pass the reference as a exception. And now coming to the, let me import this class first, and then I will show you how you can write down those things. Okay, so let me import this. Alt F4, Alt Enter. So I imported it. Let's say this handle exception is what it is doing. It is taking this method argument not valid exception as an argument, and whatever error we are getting, it is binding those error and the messages in the form of a map and then returning it. So let's say this method return type is map of a string type. Key is also a string and the values is string also. So this thing, and let me import it. So it will, what it will do, it will map the error message as well as the this mm, it map the field, what field is giving what error. So it will map the field and the corresponding error message that we have done into the validation. So that thing it will do. Let me, so here in the exception handler we need to provide this method name, sorry, this exception name. Okay, so dot class. Okay, now let me do the implementation for it. So let me create a map here of a string type. Okay, and let's say it is error map, and it is, its implementation is new hash map. Okay, now coming to the error map, what I need to do, I need to provide the field name as a key and the message what is we have published here into the user request. Let's say if the name is null, then this method should be, this message should be there uh, as a message. Okay, here we need to provide the key or as a field, like which field is having the error and what is the error message that field is providing. So that is why we are using map here. So let me do this implementation. Let's say it is exception dot uh, get binding result, get binding result, and there get fields error. Okay, get fields error, and if it is error is more than one, then we need to use this method. And then for each of the errors, what we are going to do, okay, let me, for each of the errors, what we are going to do, we are simply mapping this field and the message and then putting it to the error map. Okay, so let me do that. Error, I'm using some Java 8 Lambda expression and the Stream API function. So if you know that, it will be easy for you to see these things. Okay, so let me put this error map dot put, and here what I'm going to provide error dot get fields and then the message get default message. So error dot get default message. So we are done with this. Now let me return the map here. So error map. So what we did, we whatever exception we are getting, we are mapping it to this method with the help of exception handler annotation, and we are just simply creating one map and we are putting the field and their corresponding message into the map, and then we are returning that map. So each time when we'll hit the API, if something error is there, then it will return those things. So let me rerun this and then show you how it is behaving. So let me go to the postman. Okay, it is up on 9190. Let me go to the postman and let me hit this. So this time you can say the name is null. Okay, and the email is not valid. So for that, whatever message we have provided there into the user request class, come to the user request for name. If the name is null, the username should not be null, should be printed. And if the email is not valid, the this is not a correct mail ID should be given as a message to the client. So that is what we are able to see here. Username should not be null. That is what we are providing. Okay, and the email is not right, so this is not a correct email ID. So similarly, you can check for all of the fields that we have implemented here. So for let me provide the age here 22, and then let me try to send it. So you can say age is less than 23 is coming. Let me provide the age as 61, and then let me say the age is more than 60. So this is how it is working now. Okay, so everything whatever we did is working properly. So come to the IntelliJ, and yeah, we are we are done with our development. I will ping this GitHub link into the description of this video. Okay. So if you find this video very helpful, then please hit the like and please the subscribe my channel so that you can get such Spring Boot related development videos. Thanks for your support.